Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight as we kick off our newest series of webinars that we're going to hold monthly going forward on the first Tuesday of each month. And we're very happy to be joined by one of our top companies that we deal with today, CI Investments. We have a whole team with us tonight, which is great. CI is a great partner with us, and we definitely value their support. So I'll let Derek Reinhardt introduce our guest speaker. Derek is our local contact that we work closely with, and appreciate him joining us tonight and putting this all together for us. So Derek, go right ahead. Oh, one thing before that, we do have the Q&A feature. So if you do have a question, you can just go up to the top and hit Q&A and type it in, and I'll see it, and then we'll get Caitlin to answer it. And yeah, happy birthday to the birthday boys today, Daryl and Kevin. And Derek, I'll let you take it from here.
Amazing.
Thank you,
Matt. Thank you, and I'll wish another happy birthday, Daryl and Kevin on the call as well. Like Matt said, I'm a local guy. I just live here in London, so thank you for having us on the call. Thanks for having myself and Caitlin on the call. Like Matt said, my name's Derek Reinhardt. I'm one of the vice presidents at CI Global Asset Management. And I just kind of want to start off by giving everyone a little color on CI, who we are, what we do, and our value add we provide in partnering with advisors like Matthew and Daryl. CI, if you don't know who we are yet, hoping you will by the end of the call. We're one of the largest and longest standing asset managers in Canada, with over 150 billion in assets under management, dating all the way back to the 1960s. We provide strength and global reach with over 100 investment professionals and offices not only in Canada, but in the United States, Hong Kong, and Australia. We partner with advisors and support clients like yourselves by giving access to value-added resources like our practice management team, which is led by Caitlin Lawson. Caitlin Lawson brings over 16 years of industry experience to her role as director and now the head of our advisor consulting at CI, and has a proven track record for helping advisors and their clients like yourselves on this call across Canada kind of get to that next level with their business and get to their next level with their financial security. So without any further ado, I will let Caitlin take it away.
Thank you so much, Derek. And to everyone for joining us, we've got a couple of people spending their birthdays with me, which means no pressure. Just going to try to make this as much of a celebration about our humanity and the possibility that we have, I think, with our money more than ever before. My passion for this business started when I was 19 years old, when someone discovered me in a coffee shop and thought I was quite personable and wanted to give me a job as a receptionist at a local branch. And from there, I just took on as much information as I could and learned that I quite like people. I quite like psychology. And I really enjoy studying how people behave with their money. We work in an industry as professionals full of charts and graphs and projections, which are so important to understanding the income that we'll have when we retire and how the world works. But sometimes I think the only barrier between us and a successful financial future is ourselves. So I want to explore that connection between our mind and our money with you today. What I suspect is that we'll have the ability to hold a bit of a mirror up for you so you can see yourself in some of the things I share with you. But also, I want to inspire you to maybe talk about money a little bit differently with the people you care about. Maybe go a little bit deeper in your planning with the advisors who invited you here tonight, and hopefully just inspire you to think about money a little bit differently. So I want to start by exploring or naming this connection between our mind and our money. What we know from the research and just from ourselves is that we have a blueprint we were given about the way the world works financially, often from our parents. We also have a money story that's running in the background, which guides our decision making with our dollars today. And then we've got our behaviors, and really we've got so much data available and there are dollars available, but the way we deploy those dollars will often be affected by these three factors. And so what we know, if we look historically in the rearview mirror, is that despite people being able to earn more money, than almost ever before. I think about my mother and my grandmother. They watch me now with these opportunities that really they didn't have. And they're so happy for me to see that. But we've got the ability now generationally to really take advantage of our earning potential from a young age. And we see people are earning more income than others were at our age 50 years ago. But at the same time, we're also seeing strong evidence that people are no happier than they were just because we've got more access to money than we had in previous generations. And so why is that? We know that money doesn't equal happiness. We're told this our whole lives. But we do know that money will give us access to things that could make us happy. So I want to explore this idea of financial well-being with you this evening, because we know that you can be on paper financially well off and still be miserable. We know that people who have very little can be very, very happy. So let's see if we can explore these two pieces of the puzzle and see if we can't come up with a bit better of an explanation of what's going on. If I were to define financial well-being for you, it would be a state of being wherein you can fully meet your current and future financial obligations, feel a sense of security, which is almost the hardest piece of the puzzle for some, and then you're able to make choices that allow you to enjoy your life. So that's how I would define financial well-being. And here's how I'm going to take you through our content today. We're going to discuss the anatomy of a healthy money relationship, some of the origins of our own unique money behavior, and then finally I'm going to leave you with some ways to develop a healthy money mindset. In my experience, you're going to feel pretty confident that you're nailing a few of these pieces that I share with you, but hopefully I give you one or two breadcrumbs that you can follow in your own conversations with your spouse or with your family members moving forward after tonight. So the anatomy of a healthy money relationship really involves our understanding that this relationship with money begins at a very, very, very young age. I can say this with confidence and a big smile on my face because my youngest son, who is now 6 years old, I remember distinctly there was one moment when he was 3 where he asked me to play store with him. And of course, at that age, when they ask you to play, you just say yes. But he wanted me to play cashier, and he was going to be the customer at a store, and he brought me his items to check out at our fake cashier stand, and I scanned him through. I told him his total, and he walked over with a gift card and tried to tap it to pay, and I realized, oh no. He's informing his opinion of the world and how the world works based on what he sees. Really, money exists at the beginning, and it's there to finance our estate when our time is done in this world. And it is, as the psychiatrist David Kruger points out, the longest standing relationship we will ever have. I think because money is that access to potentially more, to potential joy and security in the future, and also because it's the thing we need when we're lacking. That sense of scarcity can sometimes exist, and maybe it's not something we found on our own, but sometimes it's something that we inherit. So to zoom out a little bit on what money actually is, we know from the dictionary definition, money is a medium of exchange and a measure of value. In our estimation, the best definition that we find is to view money as a tool. It's not an end goal. It's not a certain amount that suddenly you'll find yourself happy if you attain, but really it's meant to be a tool that you deploy to live your best possible life. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we start with these physiological foundational needs. All of us, when we enter the world, have security needs. We need shelter, we need food to eat, we need someone to love us, to be honest. That safety and security is incredibly important. But as we graduate through life, our needs become a bit more nuanced. We start to want to feel that sense of belonging, a social connection. You see this in teenagers and young adults truly just trying to find their own community and that sense of belonging in the world. Then we start to explore this idea of who am I and trying to find ways to feed our own self-esteem. And then once we've figured out what our unique gifts are, I think we try to find a way to give those gifts away. And so depending on your age on this call, you might find that as you age, you become more interested in contributing to other people, taking the time that you might have in excess or the knowledge that you might have to share, finding a way to transmit that to other people. So we do have those physiological needs, but what we found is at a certain point, somewhere in between safety, security, and social belonging, money no longer gives us that sense of happiness or that sense of fulfillment as we push up in this triangle. And so we see that a healthy money mindset requires that we keep our emotional attachment to money separate from our level of happiness. And really, if we're able to separate these two things, understand that money is a tool, but it's not going to help us graduate through this pyramid past a certain point. Understanding that there is an uncorrelation can sometimes be helpful. The most exciting part of this presentation for me, my personal favorite, is to walk you through the origins of our money behavior, because I think within this content, there are some surprises that I'm excited to share with you. It surprises some to learn that our money habits begin to form as early as age 3, as I shared with you in that story about my son, but they're almost fully formed by the age of 7. And if you think back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that bottom foundational piece, when we enter this world, we are our most vulnerable. We are highly dependent on the people around us. We don't get to choose what country we're born in, to whom as parents. We don't get a say in our surrounding circumstances. We arrive and we do our best. And what I know now as a parent is that our parents do their best too. But if you think about it, if our core money behavior and habits are formed between 3 and 7, we really don't have a lot of say in what those money habits might be. Often, if we do a little bit of digging or have a core memory that we can unlock and explore a little bit, we might have some more context in terms of what those money habits or that money blueprint we were given is comprised of. But often it's hard to access that. So let me walk you through the way I think about exploring that money story that we all have. We first have our inherited attitudes. If you were someone who grew up in a family where every Sunday morning your parents very happily took out the checkbook, paid the bills, and ended with a hug and a smooch, I've never met you before, but I hope to one day. Often what we hear in our homes follows some sort of pattern, which could be scarcity. We don't have money for that. A parent in our household was without work. Maybe money was not discussed at all. And if it wasn't for the children's ears. And so if we think about some of the outputs from that, the way our child mind might interpret some of that, it could be, I notice when money is discussed, there's always a fight. Therefore, we shouldn't discuss money. In homes where money was often not talked about, it can be really difficult for people as adults to articulate their financial needs or to feel a sense of strong financial literacy. We see strong research that even if someone scores highly on financial literacy tests, when that lack of conversation around money was noticed in childhood, their sense of themselves and their financial literacy, there's a huge gap there. So it's uncorrelated to the actual scores we see on these tests. And so there is, I think, some cause and effect that happens. If you grew up in a home where when money was discussed, you were encouraged to save consistently, to pay yourself first, to never spend more than what you make, often, again, because you heard these themes at a young age, you were probably given a blueprint that gave you a bit of an advantage as you started to earn your own money. So if you were to think back about some of those messages that you heard, which could have been all the way from we don't have money for that to money is the root of all evil, depending on the home you grew up in, often those messages become part of our subconscious mind that really influence the way we think and feel about our money today. You can have several siblings in a family who grew up in the same environment and yet who think about money quite differently. I sometimes pick on my sisters. I have a few of them, but we all grew up under the same roof where one parent was sometimes not working. There's a little bit of inconsistency in the family income, and we knew it. There was a lot of stress there, and yet for all of us girls, we have a slightly different interpretation of those circumstances. For one of my sisters, whenever she earned a little money, she immediately took it and hid it under her mattress. We all knew it was there, but she counted it regularly, so we couldn't intrude and take any at any point. For another one of my sisters, she heard the same messages. We don't have money for that. And what she interpreted that to mean for her own personality was, well, then I'm going to spend it immediately. Who wants to go to the store? Even today, you'll see some of those behaviors where she wants to book the trip and she's a bit impulsive that way because after all, if we don't have money very often or it's not consistent, we should enjoy it while we have it. And so there's a bit of an exercise you can do with your own personality traits. An associate on our team who I love dearly, she loves bungee jumping and skydiving, and it's very likely her personality has a different relationship to adrenaline and risk than my own. And sometimes I wish I could wrap myself in bubble wrap and a blanket most days just walking down the street. So I'm a bit more cautious and less prone to seeking out that excitement. And so our personalities, coupled with our inherited attitudes, will play a role in the way we think and feel about our money. Finally, we've got these life experiences. If you lost a parent young and that affected the family finances, if going to school, you realized that you spent a lot of money on student loans but didn't end up using that schooling in your chosen career, those mistakes and learnings that we make will also influence our money behaviors. And so 1 and 2 and 3 all pushed together will form that individual money behavior. I like to use this as an invitation to start thinking about your spouse if it's a bit harder for you to think about your own money behaviors. My own husband, he immigrated to Canada when he was young from France. His father is also an immigrant to Canada. And what I notice is he's pretty calm, cool, and collected until we're running late for something, until he feels that sense of stress. And then all of a sudden, he won't want to pay an extra $5 for parking that's closer to the front door of the event we're going to. Like, he sees that as a waste. Not when times are good, but when he's feeling stressed and triggered. And so if you can think about a loved one and ask yourself, when times are tough, when we're really feeling pushed and stressed, how do we start behaving with our money? Do we tend to save a little bit more? Do we tend to spend a little bit more? And neither is better than the other. I'm going to walk you through why I say that is, because it's easy, I think, to celebrate the savers and sometimes pick on the spenders, but I don't necessarily think that one is more desirable than the other. But take a look at your own family units. Take a look and get curious with yourself. Never with this idea of judgment, but just curiosity. What undercurrent might be happening below the surface that could be feeding into the way you're treating your money today? We see that there are some extremes here. We see a lot of people would categorize themselves as spenders. Others on the other end of the spectrum would say that they are savers. And then we've got some form in the middle, which is a mixture of each. 58% of Canadians identify as savers. 37% will out themselves as spenders. Here's what I know. From the research and from my own anecdotal experience, we see clear evidence that those who identify as savers are very consistent about putting money away for their retirement, but really struggle to spend it. They are so good at saving that parting with their dollars feels really difficult and sometimes gives them the sense that they're paralyzed. Spenders really find it easy to think about today and the next moment in a few months and a few years, but they tend to struggle with envisioning their future self, planning for the long term. And so while we see savers end up having often better portfolios, higher income to spend in retirement, they sometimes struggle to actually deploy those dollars for joy or for quality time, etc. They struggle to stop working because what they're used to is saving, whereas spenders have access to that joy and that ability to spend, but sometimes fail to plan for the long term. So again, one is not better than the other, but if you could see these two categories, saver and spender, what we would encourage is to get rid of that temptation to be an extreme and find a way to build the skills to meet somewhere in the middle. I talked about the blueprint that has an impact on the way we think and feel about our money as well. Life experience does have an influence. The silent generation lived through World War II and the Korean War. They were raised by parents who survived the Great Depression. While they grew up, they experienced hard times, and that was followed by a lot of prosperity. But it was almost this sense, if we look back at those patterns, that they couldn't trust the prosperity. It was always this feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so I think that has an impact generationally on the way they were using their money. We saw boomers, 56% of the time, both people and a couple were frugal. And as we sort of move down the line to Gen X and then millennials, you're seeing less and less similarity in spouses. We're seeing more of the time that one person in a couple will be frugal versus both. And so as we start to move away from some of those generational markers, that generational trauma, to be frank, and we start to move further away in the timeline from those things, it's almost like we start to feel a little bit safer with our money. It's the reason why I think some spending habits now among today's generation of millennials looks different than our parents. And I think that's a gift to be able to feel optimistic about the world, but it also sometimes creates a disconnect in the way that even my parents or grandparents thought and felt about their money, and the way that I do or my kids may in the future as well. Our own attitude towards finances is informed by the generation before us. We can see on the right here that millennials 42% of the time might overspend. For Gen X, it's less, and for boomers, even less. Boomers tend to focus more on paying off debt as quickly as possible, whereas millennials, at the opposite end of the spectrum, are comfortable taking on a bit more debt, know they'll get to it eventually, whereas we saw previous generations really tackling that debt as fast as humanly possible. And so sometimes we find in family units, a parent or a grandparent might wish to communicate some of their own perspective on their money, help their children or grandchildren avoid some of the mistakes that were made. And yet it becomes difficult when our sense of the world is very different. We saw for boomers, they were typically more saver spenders, whereas millennials are spender savers. So we tend to spend a little bit more and save a little bit less often. But for the boomers, the focus was keeping up with the Joneses. They were comfortable carrying debt, buying now and paying later. They wanted to pay that debt down as soon as possible. They were comfortable saving for short-term and long-term goals. But on the right, as I'm going down this list, you're seeing how it tracks for that next generation. For millennials, they're comfortable carrying debt, more comfortable than boomers for certain. They want to stay ahead of it, but they're comfortable taking that on to build a business, to buy a home, etc. They do tend to save for short-term goals only and can really struggle to expand their time horizon to past 10 years or so. So there are just differences generationally, and I do think that the blueprint we were handed improves over time based on our life circumstances, but it still exists in there somewhere. And sometimes for your children or grandchildren, you might notice that your money behaviors are similar, but your perspectives are different, and we do find that to be quite normal across a family unit. It's a good opportunity for me to give you some questions to reflect on. Where do your money values come from? Who were those core people who were influencing your life between the ages of 3 and 7? And how might that be impacting the way you think and feel about your money today? What are some of your inherited attitudes? What were you exposed to in terms of language or messaging around money? Or was there no messaging around money? And how might that be playing a role in the way that you treat your own finances, but also the way you view conversations about finances within your family? If you think back and you notice that there was some avoidance, which is quite common, we find among Canadian families, and when there was avoidance, when you feel that temptation to avoid the conversation, don't judge yourself for that. Just notice it and ask yourself, is this going to help improve things for the next generation? Or can I find a way to do a little bit better, be a bit more open, even 1% changes at a time? What are some of your personality traits, and how might that be impacting the way you think about your money? Again, for some who are okay embracing risk in all areas of their life, they might feel pretty comfortable in a very growth-oriented portfolio, whereas sometimes those of us a bit more conservative might lean back and be less apt to explore risk and more apt to stay the course, invest slow and steady over the long term. And again, both are okay, especially with guidance and advisor in your corner. But how might this look for you? What are some of your life experiences? How did observing things in life or making your own choices financially impact the way that you think about money today and impact the way that you view the financial choices you'll make in your future? So your answers are yours. What I want to do is encourage you to explore a resource that is going to be sent to you by Matt and Daryl after today's presentation, which will help you understand and explore some of your own money story and that mindset, and hopefully help you come to a few realizations that really help you as you approach your own financial future. To develop a healthier money mindset, I think it's important to explore some symptoms that may show you your relationship with money could use a little bit of TLC. Some associate their self-worth with their net worth. A family member of mine almost weekly refreshes his net worth. And he's terribly unhappy, I think, doing it. But trying to strive for more because you're looking to see a certain number is an interesting mindset. It keeps you relentlessly driving for more, which I think is a good thing, a good skill set to have. But what we find across the board is that once that ideal net worth is reached, people don't actually feel any different. We're back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're searching for that sense of meaning and purpose. And I don't know that we're going to find it by trying to hit a certain net worth. Worrying about not having enough. If you have your advisor sometimes telling you that you've got enough money to retire, and yet you find yourself avoiding retirement, not because you love your work, but you're not sure what else you would do, or because you're not sure that you can ever get rid of this feeling of anxiety, sometimes that's an invitation to explore that money relationship. Feeling guilty spending. Conversely, overspending and finding that despite good tactics at your disposal, you're carrying a lot of credit card debt and it seems almost habitual to gather it. Often, again, that comes from some subconscious beliefs that probably weren't yours to self-select, but you were exposed to when you were younger. If you make excuses for overspending, if you feel like you need to spend money to enjoy yourself, if, as I mentioned before, you refuse to talk about money, period, I have a lot of compassion for that. Talking negatively about money could be another one. But again, if what you identify with any or all of these, I would encourage you again just to get curious and not self-judgmental, because to be honest, we work with some extremely talented portfolio managers. We have access to fantastic professionals at CI, and I've been privileged to work with thousands of advisors over the years. But I can tell you, all of us, regardless of our vantage point in this business, know that we could improve on the way we think and feel about our own money. And so this is all of us. This is not you. This is me too. And so it's an invitation, I think, to explore how you might improve your own mindset. We know that to achieve financial well-being, we've got to both be financially secure. So yes, those quantitative pieces really matter, but we've also got to feel financially secure. And I think I've begun to outline for you how the feeling part can be a little bit trickier to navigate, but let's walk through some hallmarks of being financially secure. The good strategies that you might have heard in your life might be always have a plan and set goals. Don't pay for something unless you have the money to pay for it in cash. Sometimes these are the healthier messages that we hear. But if there are good money strategies you've learned either by someone who cares about you or through your advisors or just through trial and error over time, collect those things. Here are some that we see over time. Maintain your income to be greater than expenses. Save relative to your income for retirement, minimizing or eliminating personal debts, investing your savings, protecting yourself. I think these are important for being financially secure, is making sure you've got good visibility in the rearview mirror about what's happened so far and good visibility out the windshield to see what's coming up on the horizon. Can we protect ourselves and plan adequately for the future? We see working with a financial advisor really helps get you on your way to being financially secure. It increases your confidence. We saw during the pandemic that those who were working with an advisor, 73% of the time felt more confident about the future through all of that uncertainty than those who did not have an advisor at their disposal. These advisors are also here to do the heavy lifting for you, to hear the goals that you have for yourself, for your family, and for your life, and help you reverse engineer backwards from those goals to a strategy that will help you get there. Really, I'm not an advisor, as I've mentioned, but my belief is that financial plans and working with advisors exist to help you create and breathe life into those lifestyle plans. And maybe that sounds a bit altruistic, but really, that's why I'm here. I do believe that we have more tools than ever to enable that strong financial future, but sometimes we just need a coach in our corner to shine a light on something we've thought about already a little bit differently and inspire that sense of action. We see that working with an advisor can boost retirement savings by as much as 60% and reduce that consumption by as much as 25%. And so again, strategically speaking, having a coach in your corner, as with the advisors who invited you to join us here tonight, can be incredibly helpful. Feeling financially secure. Well, it really helps to be financially secure, doesn't it? Watching some family members of mine navigate financial uncertainty, it really shows you how stress levels can rise and how you can feel shaken up in your confidence without that financial security actually on paper. And so being financially secure, of course, really helps, or knowing that you're on your way there. In some Canadians, we notice that there is a need to work past perhaps age 65. There is going to be a need to come up with a few different projections for what your retirement income might look like. But taking part and asking to see those projections or playing with a few variables to control your own future will help lower that sense of anxiety and increase your sense of control over the future. So being financially secure can also be an action word for the future. It doesn't have to be that you're perfectly financially secure today on paper. Feeling financially secure also means being honest with yourself about who you are. It means understanding yourself, having that self-awareness, knowing where you might trip yourself up occasionally, and also knowing how to hold the compass to get you out of a funk that you might find yourself in. If we understand our root cause of some of our behaviors today, it's not to say that just by way of understanding them, they will stop. It's more to say that we'll notice when we're starting to head down a certain path and be able to self-regulate a little bit better. Avoiding comparisons becomes incredibly important too. Where boomers were often comparing themselves or keeping up with the Joneses, and we find millennials, of course, trying to keep up with friends on social media. And I think that creates a bit of a trap for ourselves in that we're not so much focusing on what we want, but we're looking at the benchmarks that exist, real or imagined, around us. And sometimes that creates unhappiness that could have been avoided. Improving your financial literacy, understanding key concepts and terms, educating yourself one piece of the puzzle at a time can be incredibly helpful as well. So let's focus in on number 2 here, uncovering your own money behavior. We know that unconscious biases are blind spots. And here's the thing, we have over 175 total biases, and we tend to lead with about 6 or 7 of them as humans. But of those 6 or 7 of the 175, the 6 or 7 we have often contradict each other. You can have a desire for high growth in your portfolio and really be okay with risk, but a severe loss aversion. And so when we're playing big and we lose big, that can devastate us. And so we're complicated creatures. I don't know that using these unconscious biases or trying to get to know your own tapestry of biases is really that helpful. But what I will say is that many of us, as people, have the presency bias. We tend to overvalue immediate smaller rewards at the expense of longer term goals. A good example of that might be if you've ever or know someone who has leased a vehicle or financed a vehicle based on what they see as the monthly payment, but failed to look at the total cost of ownership over 6 years. That's an example of looking at that immediate number and thinking, well, I can afford that, but failing to realize that entering into something like that might end up costing you tens of thousands of dollars over the long term. So that immediacy of information is interesting to explore as a bias, because we can't pick up our cell phones often. We can't turn on the TV without information being blasted at us constantly, without having to filter through some of that noise, and definitely lean on our advisor to help us navigate all of that noise in the media, etc. But when we get distracted by that presency and we let it influence our long-term decisions, I think that can have an impact on our long-term financial health. People with that low presency bias are 7.5 times more likely to plan for their future and 2.4 times more likely to pay their bills on time. But again, your biases are kind of like your values and kind of like your money blueprint. Sometimes we choose them, and sometimes we get what we get. So understanding your biases can be incredibly helpful, but I don't want you to get stuck down the rabbit hole of wishing you could change yours. I think understanding yourself and knowing who you are is incredibly helpful. Can you make the unconscious conscious though? Does thinking about money make you feel confident or insecure? Or do you feel nothing? Because that's a valid answer too. Do you have a history of making good financial decisions? And if not, why do you think that is? Are you hesitant to take action when there are issues regarding money? Do you struggle to tell your spouse or a family member that you might need a little bit of help making a decision or getting yourself out of a predicament? Is that easy for you or difficult? And again, no judgment. But why do you think that might be? Are you impulsive, or do you have the discipline to say no? Do your children have good money values? And this one is a kicker, I think, because we can kind of deal with ourselves and our own habits and the way we view the world. But when we see that next generation struggling or inheriting some of the behaviors that we wish they wouldn't, this is across all areas of life, I think, but especially with money. Can we ask ourselves, is our money behavior serving us? Can we try to do a little bit better to change the direction of the ship just 1 degree at a time? Ask yourself with curiosity, which money personality most represents you? Is it that you would identify as a saver and you're proud of it, but did I touch a nerve? When I said sometimes our savers struggle to actually find joy through their money later in life once they have permission to spend it. Would you identify as a spender? Are there ways for you to find better balance? And yes, take a portion of your income to spend, but also take a portion of your income to save, and make sure you're doing something that that future self of yours can thank you for. We see a lot of comparison. I named this earlier. Did you know in 2023, private airline carriers were earning more money than ever before, and they never actually left the tarmac? It was because we saw influencers on social media reserving these private jets and never actually leaving. They were staging photo shoots on them to post on social media. And if I was in the audience with you live, I'm sure I would be hearing shocked expressions because that typically happens here. But here's what I'll tell you. When we've got a life that exists online, and when most of us are exposed to seeing this life that exists online, we assume that it's true and we assume that it's real. But I think it creates this false sense that we've got to keep up with something that may not actually be enjoyed in real life. And I think that's something to highlight here, is that comparison is the thief of joy, is the expression that I love to use, and it's for a reason. I think when we get tempted to check out the car beside us on the highway, or we're looking at someone's home, which is big and opulent and looks maybe different from ours, we've got to remind ourselves that that person may or may not have the life that we actually want. And it's a good reminder to just focus on our own lane and ask how we might explore this idea about joy with our money in a way that makes sense for ourselves and for our current state. Understanding the hedonic treadmill. If you're a spender, be aware of that sense that it's never enough. We've got that natural instinct to crave more, which can sometimes influence our sense of happiness today. We're pursuing this feeling of pleasure to increase our sense of happiness. But as I mentioned earlier, if we're desensitized to the joy that's already around us today, we're not going to be able to find more of it from outside of ourselves. Opting for experiences to create lasting memories is a good way to stop accumulating things and instead try to create memories with the people that we care about. One question that is often asked is, are boomers saving enough? We see boomers were fantastic, generationally speaking, and again, often, not always, at putting money towards the mortgage and paying that down quite quickly comparatively to other generations. But we also see that for many of these boomers, all of their equity is in their home. And again, are we creating this life for ourselves that, yes, has the home that you probably wanted for a long period of time, but how is your financial picture looking over the long term when all of your equity is still in your home? Some really focus on this idea of retirement. I'm going to save as much as humanly possible so that I can retire as fast as possible. And to do that, I'm going to sacrifice all joy today. We see this across younger generations lately as well. There's a community called the FIRE community, which stands for Financially Independent Retire Early. And again, we're seeing people really admirably, I think, earn as much money as possible to retire as quickly as possible, but have no friends, have little to show for it. And then what we're seeing is if they retire by 35, having been successful at that, they end up finding their way back to work because they've lost that sense of pursuit of meaning and purpose. And so I don't know that diverting all of our finances today to retire as fast as possible and being somewhat unreasonable with those timelines is a way to access happiness either. But where might you find extremes in your own behavior? There are emotional biases that go along with saving, and I've named a couple of them in the last two slides. Paying down the house extremely, extremely quickly, but not actually focusing on other areas of your financial picture, as well as sacrificing all of the enjoyment that could exist for yourself today because you'd like to retire a little bit sooner. Sometimes savers will have biases that are extremes as well. Typically for savers, instead of chasing joy like our spenders, you're trying to avoid pain. And again, I would really uncover that money story from earlier in life and those inherited attitudes to explore why that might be. But that instinct to avoid pain can sometimes become destructive. It can sometimes create scarcity in your own life that probably wasn't what earlier you had in mind, and probably not actually what you want to experience for yourself. But if you find yourself caught in this cycle of focusing on this scarcity and realizing there is no dollar amount to help you feel less scarcity, then it could be an indicator that that emotional bias exists for you to avoid pain. Changing your mindset can be incredibly helpful here, and is, I can tell you, neurobiologically possible, but not without a little bit of work and a little bit of grit. We see studying money scripts creates different neural pathways in the brains. If you have some scripts that could be spending money makes me happy, or spending money is shameful, so two extremes, money is never enough, or I will never have enough. Those will often be the messages you heard growing up, some of those inherited attitudes. And when you catch them flitting across your brain, what I want you to do is write them down. Awkward as it might feel, we won't tell anyone you're doing this, but can you write the opposite? Can you try to find the opposite for the thing that you've just found yourself thinking? I'll never have enough. What would the opposite of that be? I have more than enough. Spending money makes me happy. Spending money is not the key to my happiness. It's not good to talk about money. It's safe to talk about money. There will always be an opposite for these scripts that you find. And what we see in the research is that simply over the span of 30 days, writing down these scripts that just go on in your head, but you don't actually believe, and then writing their opposite and crossing the old one out, you're starting to form new neural pathways in your brain, and you can influence the way that you feel about your money. We can't change that money story as it originated for you, but we can influence the ending should you desire to give that a try. Avoiding comparisons, thinking more about this finding success in financial wellness. We saw in a study that was done, people were given two possible scenarios. One, scenario A, your current income could be $50,000, but the people around you would be earning $25,000. Or in scenario B, your current yearly income could be $100,000, but others will be earning $200,000. I'll let you guess which one most people decided that they'd prefer. It was scenario A. I think we can't help this sense of comparison to the people around us. We'll see plenty of people to that point finding a way to live in wealthier neighborhoods, even though they're really strapped to pay the rest of their bills, even though they have a lower life satisfaction overall because they're stressed about affording this lifestyle in this neighborhood, versus those who might live in a less wealthy neighborhood but have a bigger home. And it seems, statistically speaking, that sense of comparison means we feel this need to get into that neighborhood and feel like we belong there. But again, what are we doing all of this for? Is that sense of desire to compare ourselves to other really impacting our ability to compare ourselves today to who we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and really to appreciate and enjoy how far we've already come versus always striving for that next thing on the horizon? Feeling financially secure. Of course, we've talked about uncovering, your own money story, avoiding comparisons, but also part of feeling financially secure is improving your own financial literacy. Women have been taught through experience and story more than anything that they may not be great with money. We see this often passed down in stories throughout families. My mother was reminding me last weekend when I saw her that in the 1970s was the first time she had the opportunity to get her own credit card without having her husband or a parent co-sign with her. But she also told me even if she went and got that credit card, people would probably be talking about her because what's going on in your family unit that you need your own credit card. And so that wasn't all that long ago. And she reminded me of this. She was just about to have my oldest sister. She was trying to figure out the way the world worked, and she was running off of her own blueprint inherited by her mother, which was a bit removed from the financial decisions of the family. And that will have an impact on the way that you behave with your money over time. It's almost the sense, I think, for women that we're lucky to be included, or maybe that we have more capability to earn money than ever before. 38% of Canada's entrepreneurs are female, but we're also seeing this gap in understanding of how we're actually meant to utilize this money, all of this power that's at our disposal. Conversely, while we could say that men have been taught to think they're supposed to be good with money, what do I notice about that in the research? Well, it's that men almost feel this responsibility to already know enough. It prevents them from asking good questions. They feel, I think, a generational burden or responsibility to provide for the family. And I think sometimes that feeling like I'm supposed to know all of this already, again, prevents those open conversations, which I think are needed if we want to explore this feeling of financial wellness over the long term. And so I want to highlight that everyone, male or female, can improve their financial literacy. I mentioned I've been in this industry for over 16, almost 17 years, and I'm still educating myself. I'm still trying to explore some of those money behaviors that I have and finding a way to educate myself on the pieces I'm less confident on, and that's everybody. Everybody can improve their financial literacy. So of the things on the wheel on the screen here, I would encourage you to pick one. Is it that something I said tonight piqued your interest and you'd like to explore that money story a little bit more? Is it that you're going to play detective on your spouse if you don't tell them, if they weren't here tonight? And just observe them when they're stressed out and see how some of those behaviors influence the way that they behave with their money. And again, just getting curious. But do you want to get more financially literate on yourself or your family's own behavior? And if it's more quantitative education that you want, you're attending this session tonight. So I congratulate you on doing something for your own financial literacy already. But if you have questions about insurance products, about some of the products that are in your own portfolio, about your investments, or you want to talk about your own relationship to risk, don't be afraid to have those conversations, because I know your advisors would love to have those discussions with you. The final tactics I'll leave with you this evening would be getting curious about your own money story in whatever way feels comfortable for you. I mentioned that there will be a resource sent to you called Your Mind and Your Money. And it's a workbook that you can go through some exercises in to help you understand what might have happened in the past that might be influencing the way you think and feel about your money today. Make brave observations. Be a student of yourself and see what you can uncover about your own beliefs, and ask yourself, if I change nothing, would I be happy with the result? Or is there an opportunity to grow a little bit here? Shift away from money behavior extremes. If you identify as a saver or you identify as a spender, can we try to find a way to meet ourselves in the middle and use some great tactics that exist, like working with your advisor to help create more balance in your approach? Reframe those negative money scripts. Now that I've said to you, you've probably got some scripts going on in your mind. I can guarantee you're going to start to notice them over the next few days. And again, write them down and see if you can't interrogate them. Is it really true? And often it's not. And sometimes just pulling that weed out of the garden can be incredibly effective to help us feel that sense of financial wellness. Inspire the next generation. I mentioned my son and having this aha moment that, like it or not, he's influenced by the way we talk about and think about money. And I should have known. I deliver this content all the time. I'm passionate about it. But until we start to see the impact on the next generation of our own perspective, sometimes that's the nudge we need to take a look at our approach a little bit differently. I would encourage you to look at money as a tool. And just like tools in a tool shed or the tools that we have in our home, what is it in service of? What is your money in service of? What future vision are you trying to empower or create? What would you consider to be financial success 5, 10, 15 years from now, or even after you're gone? What might that financial wellness look like for you if money was used as a tool properly today? Practice enjoyment. Really, without enjoyment, what is all of this for? I hope the content shared with you this evening was helpful. I'm more than happy to take a few questions. And with that, I'll stop sharing the slides and revert over to Derek and to Matt.
Thank you, Caitlin. That was fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time to present that. I was really looking forward to this presentation after I read an article today talking about Black Friday and the money that was spent just 4 or 5 days ago, and how much of it is now being financed with one of those buy now, pay later. And talking about the millennials, that number was 40% of of purchases made by 16 to 24-year-olds were financed on Black Friday. So one thing we always like to talk to our clients about is talking about their estate planning and making sure their beneficiaries and executors are aware of all their plans. But I think one thing to say would be maybe also, if you have children or grandchildren, don't take it for granted that they know everything about money or what they may have or be dealing with. That maybe you can help guide them a bit. So that's one thing I really took out of the presentation tonight. So really appreciate that, and I really like the FIRE community. What was it? Financial independence, retire early.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I really like that. I'm going to steal that.
We're seeing really interesting research just on it's cool to know that you could do that, but we're also seeing some psychological cost to really devoting yourself intensely to that goal. And so I think, as with most things, there's a bit of a peak of realization we could do this, and then a realization maybe we shouldn't do this. So I'm hoping it evens out a little bit over time.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that. I think having a plan is always a good thing, and plans change as things change. So, making sure you're on the right track is always a good idea. So, those are all conversations we're happy to have with our clients. And if our clients have somebody in their family that they'd like us to talk to as well, we're happy to do that as well. And any help we can provide. One of our goals in the office is always making sure our clients are comfortable with what they're doing and feel good with what they're doing. So that's definitely something we strive towards. Daryl, I don't know if you have any questions, or if anybody has any questions, feel free to hit the Q&A button at the top, and we'll get them answered.
Sure. I have a few comments and one kind of general question for Caitlin. So I'm of the age now, Caitlin, that virtually everyone in my office for what I think is recently, my staff says 20 years, gets a lecture from me. And I could get away with it just because I believe people are carrying too much debt. I was raised in a family. I missed the first few minutes there about how you establish those biases. And for my mom, my mom was more of a saver. My dad was more of a spender. I would still be doing tax returns by hand with a pencil if it wasn't for my dad. I didn't want to spend the money on software. My mom always believed you save the money first and then you buy it. So when people come in and they're talking about retirement in a few years, I will not let them retire until their debts are paid off. You cannot retire with debt. So everyone that comes in the office, whether you were 18 or 80, gets a lecture on debt from me. So following up on that, one thing I've observed over many, many years is one of the most common comments from the parents are they've raised their children, whether they have 2 or 12, they think identically. One is a saver, one is a spender before they even get it, but yet they think they raised them the same. So is it a genetic disposition, or did they have a traumatic event early in their childhood to influence that?
I think there is some distance between nature and nurture, and I think some of what I shared around siblings in the same home having a very different interpretation of those inherited attitudes, I do think it is sometimes personality, and it's interesting to see your child's personality simply amplify as they grow. And so barring any real trauma that existed within the family unit or within the child, I would say sometimes it's just that the child's personality is that which is going to lean more one way or the other. And I could certainly give you several examples if my sisters could let me pick on them quite a bit. in that sense. But yeah, we do see that often it is personality based, and simply a trigger event or a triggered mindset in a family will be interpreted differently by a young brain. And so sometimes we see different siblings in one family or an entire lineage have different interpretations of a core event that occurred. And so often for parents, my encouragement is really to take a look at those moments, or even a grandparent, if you've got the opportunity now with a fresh generation to do things a bit differently. What are those phrases you're saying in a rush? For me, it's trying to navigate a grocery store with my little one, and it's such a balance, character building balance of trying to get what I need to get done and keep him from running off to see the lobsters in the tank. And often I found myself saying, we're not buying that today. We don't have money for that. And I'm not trying to impart any specific script to him. I'm just stressed and in a rush. And I think that's somewhat universally shared, is we're doing our best, but we often don't pause and slow down. And so one quick shift that I would make is just a takeaway from this evening is, instead of rushing, it's tempting, but catch yourself trying to just get them off your back with one sentence. And instead of saying, we don't have money for that, to pause and get at eye level and say, I know you want the Kinder Egg or the Hot Wheels car. But you remember, we also talked about wanting to go to Hawaii next year, going to Mexico. And what do you think would be more fun? Getting another Hot Wheels car when you've got 100 of them, or planning for that great vacation? And kids, when they get a bit older, will understand that reason, and they might kick and scream a little bit and still want the toy, but they start to understand over time, it's not just about this impulse that I have, it's about planning for the future. And boy, does it feel good to actually realize that future that you've been planning for.
Wow, very good advice. I know whether it's Buffett or his partner Charlie Munger said it's easier to get rich is you spend less than you make and invest the difference. So you have to make those choices early. And if you can explain to younger people the benefits of delayed gratification, I think that would be a nice impulse to resist for young people. So great advice. Anybody from the audience, feel free to raise their hand or get on the chat at the bottom of your screen option. I think, Matt, anybody?
Yeah, I think we got one. Oh, Caitlin, do you have a favorite book or literature for learning the very young, healthy relationship with money?
Great question.
I love that question. And in fact, I do have a bit of a short list on my desktop that I can share with you as part of the follow-up, if that's helpful. But one thing I will tell you has been really helpful in my own home, and I gift it to any friend with a young child now, is Amazon or Etsy will both sell 3-slot piggy banks. And instead of just a piggy bank with one slot, you've got 3 different categories in that piggy bank, and they are spend, save, and donate. And from a young age, so let's say it's $3, 3 loonies, you're showing your child, you're making a game of it, putting one in every slot. And I found just such a subtle shift over time in showing that there's 3 different ways to look at this money. And if you want to save your money up for something, we're going to empty that spend slot and see what we've got in there. And we're going to keep that save slot for 2 occasions. One will be, maybe around your birthday, and one will be Christmas. But that giveaway slot, we do this every December, and it's become a really good family tradition for us, is we'll empty the donate slot and then let my son choose what charity he wants to give it to. And we'll often go and make a trip of it for him to donate. And so it's become something that my eldest really refused for a while, but is now very much behind. And my youngest just loves it. He's like, well, it's got to go in my donate slot. I forgot to put something in there last time. And I think from that young age, we still have some ability to influence the way they think and feel about money, and hopefully do as we say and not as we do.
That's an excellent thing, or excellent idea. Never heard of that, but that would be great for younger children. I will say myself, maybe for a little bit older, I just gifted my 13-year-old my old copy of The Wealthy Barber. Oh, so that's definitely a book that I would recommend for probably young teenagers or people in their late teens.
Love that.
Yeah, great. Any other words of wisdom, Derek, for a young guy like you?
You speak with your financial advisor. I would highly there's a lot of mumbo jumbo out there about using, robo advisors or using your cell phone or using the computer. You can get a lot of value and a lot of advice from Matt and Daryl, and we're firm believers in advice and the value add that they're able to provide. So don't always listen to what you hear on social media. Caitlin talked about Instagram and the airplanes on the ground and how they were using those. And don't always listen to what you hear on the news or the media or on social media. There's always more outside the first picture that you see. So consult a professional, someone that that's been doing it for a long time, and I think it'll go a long way.
Good for you. Are you a saver or spender, Derek?
I'm a little bit of both.
Okay. and Caitlin?
You know what? I'll be honest. I pick on my sisters. I have 4 sisters. There are 5 girls in our family, and I pick on them because they're not here to complain. But it's, you know what I noticed? I was the 4th out of 5, and I saw a lot of money stress in my home growing up. And what I realized was that I observed all of this tension, and we were never really meant to talk about it or name it. And what I realized was I never wanted to feel again like I had to accept the hand-me-down shoes that had holes in them. Like, I didn't want to find myself in that position again. I didn't want to see my mom cry when she had to pay the bills and there wasn't enough. And so I kind of took this extreme where I will spend, but I use money to solve problems so that there won't be problems. And sometimes that's great if I'm traveling in this role and, making sure that we buy groceries and they're delivered to the house. I feel like I'm solving a problem and ensuring my youngest won't eat chicken nuggets again. But sometimes I feel like that wanting to remove conflict and let's use money to solve a problem. Sometimes if I'm really stressed, that can get away from me. So again, this is not your mind and your money. This is our minds and our money. And I think if we're honest with ourselves about some of the more toxic ways our money behaviors can show up, then we can be honest, notice that we're doing it, and bring ourselves back to balance.
No, good for you. To follow up on Derek, I think our job by far most important aspect is to keep people on a plan and like investing in for doing this for virtually a lifetime is pretty simple if you stick to the plan, which is pretty difficult. So if you can resist those impulses, resist panic selling and panic buying and stay the course. And that's the one thing, and it's not a sales pitch here, but the Wealthsimples, that's the one flaw in that. It's a little too simple to trade, no pun intended. It's really the consistency and the sticking to that plan. As you get a little older, you find out that you don't want that stress of that extra payment. And if you want to achieve financial security, you have to resist those impulses. So glad you picked up on that from your own family, Caitlin. Yes.
When you know better, you do better.
Yes. We're going to wind it down here in a minute, folks. I think Matt might have got kicked off here.
Yeah, I'm back now, though.
Oh, you're back. Okay, good.
There he is.
So we just wind it down in a minute or two, I think, Matt. So any final questions for anybody? Any final comments?
No more questions there.
Okay. So I'll let Matt wrap it up in a second, but hopefully everybody enjoyed tonight. I certainly did this. I really believe this was one of the more important webinars we have, is that relationship with money. And really, I'd encourage that any participants tonight to forward the emails. We're going to post this on our website. We've had a hard time in the past, not that we didn't want to with compliance, but it'll be on our website, thamesfordwealth.com. And please encourage everyone, especially younger people, to partake in this tonight. Matt, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, and like us on Facebook.
Yes.
We have our Facebook page, so it'd be great.
Yes.
And we will, as Caitlin mentioned, we're going to send out the workbook from this event, which will be great. And Caitlin, you're going to share your list of books that you recommend?
Yes, sir.
All right, and we'll get that out as well.
Great. And then we want to, we're working on updating our website so that we have more things posted on there for information. You mentioned, I forget, Caitlin, the term, is that Finfluencers, if I've said that correctly.
Influencers, yeah.
Yeah, so Matt and I are trying to go out of our way to educate our, not just our clientele, but the public in general with information that's kind of tried and true. And there'll be a lot of Buffettisms on there, but I mean, really the common sense aspect of it, because I'm not so sure that some of the information that young people are getting is quite as, I don't want to say accurate, but maybe not as quite as what relevant as what they actually need. So we're going to work towards that. So please look at our website in the future so we can post these things. With that, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all I have. Just a reminder that January 6th will be our next webinar. So we look forward to seeing you all again, we hope. And that one will be Daryl and I speaking.
Ooh.
Yeah. Stay tuned. We'll try to update our how 2025 went. Obviously, this is a very good year for investors, and kind of give our outlook a little bit for 2026. And our clients occasionally, surprisingly, shockingly, like to hear from us. So we're going to start the year off with Matt and myself. And a really big thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. And hopefully they found this very worthwhile.
Great.
And we'll see you on future webinars.
Derek and your teams.
Yes, a very big thanks, Derek, for providing Caitlin and Richard on here with us. We certainly appreciate our partnership with CI, and we hope a much stronger one in 2026 as we get back on track here. So
amazing.
Thank you
Merry
so
Christmas
much.
and a Happy New Year to everyone on the call. And thank you, Daryl and Matt, for the partnership.
Certainly. Yes, Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year to all. Caitlin, good luck to you out in Vancouver.
Thank you. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay. Good night, folks. And thanks for the birthday wishes.